Hi everyone, my name is Brooke Pfefferly and this is the video quiz 2. So for the first question, it asked for the two most important items that I learned about from nonverbal communication that I didn't really know about before reading the week's content. And one of the first ones that stood out to me was from the Leslie Schwartz article called Nonverbal Communication with Workplace Interactions, and it was a stat that said about 65 to 75% of all communication is nonverbal in nature. I just found that to be pretty interesting. I kind of had a general idea of, I guess, the number or the precise percentage. I just didn't know like the exact amount or how high it was, so I just thought that was pretty neat to see, like, the exact number, that it's around 65 to 75%. That was pretty high, and that was kind of cool to read about. And then the second most important item I took away, it wasn't necessarily one exact thing, but rather it was a whole article. It was the Forbes article called The 10 Nonverbal Cues That Convey Confidence at Work, and they listed them out. They were good eye contact, confident handshake, effective gestures, dressing the part, authoritative posture and presence, appropriate facial expressions, initiating interactions, appropriate voice tone, giving your full attention, and responding to others' nonverbal cues. Overall, this just really put into perspective of how much of those things that we can actually control and how that can affect how others really perceive us. So going back to that previous statistic, like 60 to 75% of our nonverbal communication really has a lot to say of who we are as a person, just as much as what we say. So our actions, our facial expressions, our body language really does say a lot about who we are as people as well. For the second question, it said, why is nonverbal communication relevant when studying communication in organizations? And I kind of went back to the same article by Leslie Schwartz when she said nonverbal communication is essential to successful relationships in the workplace. And she backed this up by also saying that we learn display rules as children about how to appropriately express emotions and respect. I think that respect piece was vital. That was very important. I highlighted it. I think that was the word that really stood out to me from that sentence. But that respect piece is huge. I think it just comes down to common courtesy at some point, to look someone in the eye, to be attentive when someone is speaking to you. Otherwise, I just think it's rude to be looking at your feet, just not really being engaged in the conversation. That's just not respectful. So, also in terms of studying that in terms of organizations and companies, at the end of the day, they're a team. And in order for things to run smoothly, everyone has to be on the same page. So being respectful to one another, especially verbally or non-verbally, the eye contact, the body language, not being on your phone during meetings, those little things can really add up and affect the team chemistry, the culture of the company. So it's very, very important to be attentive and be respectful of the colleagues that are around you. And then the second part of the question asked if you see this do you see this changing with increased online work from home? And yes and no. I see both sides of it. Yes, like if you're on a Zoom call with your boss or your colleagues, it's still very important to be attentive, look them in the eye. You don't want to be on your phone or, playing solitaire on your computer during a meeting. That's not good. But also on the other side, I do think we're losing some of our social skills. Maybe not everybody, but some people maybe have become a little bit more uncomfortable in some social situations due to COVID, taking a year off from work. Being in the house for a long time maybe created some, we kind of lost some of our skills with interacting with one another. So I do see both sides of that debate. And then lastly, the third question was mostly about the week 5 readings and what we took away from those. The most beneficial information related to organizational communication that I found was really about the discipline of being a good listener. I think we can really relate that back to the nonverbal communication. But it's just really important to be attentive, look someone in the eye when they're speaking to you. That's just part of being a good listener. And there's a quote from the article HBR, the discipline of listening, that stood out to me when it said, "For leaders, listening is a central competence for success. At its core, listening is connecting. Your ability to understand the true spirit of message as it is intended to be communicated and demonstrate your understanding is paramount for forming connections and leading effectively." I just think that was really well worded, and it just really brought home like how effective listening can be. And then the second piece from week 5 that I enjoyed was by Michelle Renee, titled "The Top 10 Diversity Issues at Work." That article was a very good read, and I really enjoyed it. She really lists out the issues, including some respect in the workplace, some conflict among employees, and alternative lifestyle acceptance. She just really broke down those top 10 issues at work. And she also had a quote that I liked when she said, "Diversity in the work environment promotes acceptance, respect, and teamwork. Companies that overcome certain diversity issues often achieve greater productivity, profit, and company morale." So this just kind of goes to show how important diversity and inclusion is amongst companies and colleagues, how huge that is, and how certain companies can reap better benefits when the culture and the office gets along. So those were my key takeaways, and I look forward to hearing what everyone else had to say.